They told me to stop talking about burnout, so I did. 2 months later, my sudden leave request left management scrambling, short-staffed, and under corporate investigation. The same people who punished me for being honest were now begging for my transparency. This is the story of how I turned silence into my sweetest revenge. If you've ever been punished for being honest at work, this story's for you. Hit that subscribe button and drop a like, because sometimes the best revenge isn't loud, it's quiet, calculated, and corporate approved. All right, let's dive in. I work in a field that's notorious for its high turnover and burnout. The kind of job that eats people alive, long hours, constant deadlines, and emotional fatigue that seeps into your bones. Because of that, my company claims to prioritize mental health transparency. They tell us, talk to your manager if you're struggling. Take time off when you need it. We're a family. But I learned the hard way that transparency is only welcome when it's convenient for management. Last year, my life fell apart. Within just a few months, I lost 2 close family members, both unexpectedly. Grief hit me like a freight train. I couldn't focus. I couldn't sleep. Every day felt heavier than the last. Still, I showed up. I did my best. I believed my company when they said they supported open communication. So during my one-on-one meetings, I started being honest. I said I was struggling, that I felt burnt out, and I might need some extra help managing my workload. My manager nodded sympathetically, took notes, promised to keep it confidential. Then, a week later, I was called into a meeting with HR. I'll never forget the pit in my stomach when they slid that paper across the table. A formal write-up. The reason. Apparently, my negative attitude and repeated discussions about burnout were creating unnecessary stress among the team. They accused me of using one-on-ones inappropriately, as if talking about mental health in a mental health-friendly company was somehow unprofessional. And then came the kicker. They documented every single time I'd asked for help. Every one note, every sentence where I mentioned burnout, all compiled as evidence that I was bringing down morale. Their action plan stated I was no longer to discuss burnout, mental health struggles, or personal issues at work. In other words, you can be transparent as long as it doesn't make us uncomfortable. I left that meeting in a daze. I'd gone from grieving employee to problem staff member overnight. At first, I was angry, trembling, pacing, replaying the conversation in my head. But then something clicked. If they wanted silence, I'd give them silence. From that day on, I became the model employee. At least, on the surface. I stopped mentioning burnout. I stopped asking for help. I stopped talking at all beyond what was necessary. I'd come in, do my job mechanically, and leave. No complaints. No emotions, just cold, robotic compliance. And as the weeks passed, my manager seemed relieved. Finally, they thought I'd fixed my attitude. But what they didn't realize was that I was running on fumes. A dead battery pretending to work. About 2 months later, everything caught up with me. The lack of rest. The constant pressure. The grief that never got a chance to breathe. I was done. Mentally, emotionally, physically. So I scheduled a meeting with HR. Just one more, but this time it wasn't to talk. It was to act. I calmly handed over my paperwork requesting a 7-week leave of absence for mental health and burnout recovery. The HR rep blinked in confusion. My manager's face turned pale. "Wet," she said. "You never told us you were struggling." I reached into my folder, pulled out the copy of my write-up, and slid it across the table, the same way they had done to me. "I tried," I said softly. "But your action plan said I couldn't talk about burnout anymore." The silence that followed was delicious. The HR rep shifted uncomfortably. My manager's mouth opened, then closed again, like she wanted to argue but had nothing to stand on. All I said was, "I'm just following company policy." A week later, I got the official approval 7 weeks off, partially paid. Apparently, corporate had stepped in after reviewing the situation, and they were not happy. Turns out my manager's handling of my burnout had raised red flags. She and HR were formally scolded for creating a hostile work environment that prevented staff from seeking support. And the best part, they had to cover my workload, all of it, for nearly 2 months. Every project, Every task I normally handled now fell on the same people who thought I was talking about burnout too much. My absence became their burnout. While I rested, they scrambled. Emails piled up. Deadlines slipped. Clients complained. And when I returned, refreshed and smiling, the office atmosphere had completely changed. Suddenly, management was very careful with their words. Our new one-on-ones began with, "How are you really doing? Do you have enough support?" They even sent out a company-wide email reminding everyone that mental health conversations were always welcome. The irony was almost too much to handle. I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need to fight. I just followed their rules and let their hypocrisy burn itself out. The most satisfying part wasn't the time off. Though, trust me, those 7 weeks were glorious. It was watching the people who silenced me get held accountable for their own words. They wanted me to suppress my pain for their convenience. But in doing so, they revealed exactly who they were, and the system turned on them. Sometimes silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the quietest form of rebellion. This experience taught me something powerful. When people try to weaponize your vulnerability, let them. Because the truth has a way of exposing itself, and karma has a corporate email address. If you've ever worked for a boss who punished you for being human, hit that like button. You've earned it. Drop a comment below what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen in a toxic workplace. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories where karma doesn't knock. It walks right in, clipboard in hand, and makes management sweat. Because sometimes, justice isn't loud. It's perfectly silent and perfectly timed.